It's November 2nd. I'm Ezra Levant, and you're watching Battleground. Hey folks, Ezra Levant here. I am the Rebel Commander. That's my pretend title. I'm actually just the president of the Rebel. And every Friday at noon Eastern Time, which I think is 4 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time for our British viewers, we do something called a Super Chat. It is something that YouTube invented. It's a way for you to have a live chat with me. As you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, all the chats. And the super part is if you chip in a few dollars, a few quid, a few pesos, a few rupees, a few kopecks, your comment gets put in a bright color and appended to the top of the screen. And I like that because, of course, YouTube has demonetized most of our videos. But with the super chats, we get to keep 70% of it. So it helps us float the boat. So thank you in advance for that. I do have some video clips today. I've got 4 clips that I hope to show you, covering 4 countries. We have a story from the United Kingdom. We have a story from Canada. We have a story from the United States. And we have a story from Oaxaca, Mexico. What do you think of that? Because, frankly, the sun never sets on the Rebel Empire. I want to say that in addition to these 4 video clips, I'm going to try and get through some more comments and questions, because those are always fun. And they're sometimes more interesting than what I myself bring to you in the form of video. We've got 165 people, 107 people joining right now. And by the way, that's something that bugs me. We got 1.1 million YouTube subscribers, but YouTube, Google, they sort of throttle us, not sort of. I mean, it's, if you got 1.1 million people, they're not all getting that little symbol that we're going live. I'm not overly bitching. I'm just pointing out the inherent bias in YouTube. I mean, the Young Turks, who we modeled ourselves after, they're on the left. They're the toast of the town in YouTube land because they're left wing. But frankly, it's even a surprise that the Rebel is still on YouTube and we haven't been kicked off completely. Yeah, I just see Dig of the Dump says, look at the BBC News, Ipswich 30-year-old in the UK secondary school. Yeah, Alex, if you want to put that video up, I just tweeted it. It's not a video, it's a website. You know, all these migrants come over to Europe, including the luckiest ones who make it to the UK. And they're obviously grown men. You know, full beards or whatever, but they say, oh, I am a child. I am a minor child of tender years. And no one believes them, not even the liberals, not even the bureaucrats, but they go along with the folly. They get full benefits, full everything if they're a minor child. But in this one school, put it up on the screen when you get it, 30-year-old men are being dumped into high schools along with teenage girls. I mean, it's so obvious, it's so gross, and you wonder why the rape gangs are just cutting through the UK like a hot knife through butter. Because the Brits, they're too polite to say, get the hell out of this school, you predatory creep. I mean, would you let some 30-year-old guy off the street just come in and hang out with the teenage girls? No, you would not. But he says, oh, I'm a child migrant. Pay no attention to my full beard. I'm a child migrant. I shouldn't make fun of the Brits only because, of course, we do that in Canada, too. You'll recall our stories from a year or so ago when Syrian migrants, Justin Trudeau's Syrians, were dumped in Fredericton and Halifax. They had 21-year-old men with full beards being put into high schools. Let me know if you need the link for that. Just type in 30-year-old Ipswich. I just want to show people the headline. There we go. Ipswich school reports pupil age 30. You scroll down a bit. They got a picture of the guy. They got a picture of him. I'm pretty sure. A little bit further. Oh, they don't have a picture of him in this one here, but in another story, they got a picture of the guy, and he's ready to. He's almost old enough to be a grandpa, really. It's just unbelievable. Hey, we got a super chat from Robert Griffiths, £5. Sterling job, Mr. Ezra, changing this chaotic, childish tantrum world into a place for grown-ups. Well, geez, I didn't know I was doing that, but I will do my best to do that. Boy, there's some interesting comments. El Chupacabra, a new poll in the UK showed only 51% of people aged 18 to 25 see themselves as heterosexual. All right, I don't even know what to make of that. Kilgore Trout says, hypothetical, what would you like a book to explain to you? What would I like a book to explain to me? Well, okay. I'll bite. I mean, I've thought about this for 30 seconds, but your last question, the last question from El Chupacabra makes me think, what is it about millennials that vote for vacuous folks like Beto O'Rourke in Texas or Justin Trudeau? Is it that they think they're voting for like a reality show star? Or they think they're voting for a boyfriend or something? Now, the good news is most millennials don't vote. But for those who do they think it's a game? Like, why are they voting for such obviously unqualified, shallow people? Is that a good answer to your question? Thank you for those questions. I got a few videos I want to show you. Let's start from the east and make our way west. I do have this video, and I tweeted this the other day, but I want to show it to you. You know, when I've been in the UK before, when Tommy worked with us, he introduced me to a fella named Mohan Singh. And as the name suggests, he's a Sikh fella. In fact, the day I met him, he had a big old sword with him. You don't see that too often. And Tommy is really close to the Sikh community because they have the same problem. Young Sikh girls are specifically identified and targeted by predators in the Muslim community who target Sikh girls and indigenous white British girls. They never target Muslim girls because it's an ethnic thing, it's a conquest thing, it's a superiority thing, it's a domination thing, it's a submission thing, it's a Quranic thing. So I want to show you this video that I came across online, and I thought to myself, this guy reminds me a little bit of Tommy. Here, just play the video. Play about a minute of this video from the start. Go ahead.
Underage Sikh girl, have you? Yes, you have. You come to me an underage Sikh girl. Yeah? You come all the way from London. We've got all your messages. You come to me an underage Sikh girl. How do you feel about this? Should we call the police straight away now? Or do you want to do this a different way? Different way, yeah?
Sit down, take a seat.
Sit down, take a seat. All these messages. You come all the way from London and you've said, if you let me then, and you can give me a job. You know she's underage. You know she's an underage Sikh girl, and you've come to link her and to do indecent sexual assault. Are you admitting this, yeah? Yeah, you're admitting this, yeah? What else have you said to her? You booked your tickets last night. You were keen to come and see an underage Sikh girl, and you've come to do sexual acts with her.
No sexual acts.
Yeah, you said come and give me a That's what you said. Yeah? You've sent pictures of you with Shah Rukh Khan? Yes? That's you? Yeah, you're not lying now, yeah? Okay. So we have no other evidence. There's lots of messages here. Yeah? There's loads of detail. What do you want? We want you...
Can you explain this? What
does that mean?
Read that.
I did, okay. Give an explanation of why you...
What does BJ mean?
I'm sorry, what do you want me to do? I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'm sorry.
You know it's illegal to have sexual activity. You know it's illegal to have sexual activity with a minor.
Yes.
You know that.
And you're intent to explain yourself. Why have you come all this way to have sexual acts with a minor?
Just came to see it, that's it. Okay, what do you want me to do? I'll do it.
You didn't just come to see it.
All right, I won't play the whole thing. You could find it pretty quick online. What they did there, if it wasn't clear, is they impersonated or they took over the social media account of an actual minor child of tender years, a real child, not one of these fake 30-year-old children. They impersonated a young girl, and it was a sting operation, and they did the chat back and forth with that Muslim groomer. And when they arranged a meetup in Birmingham, I think it was, they went there and said, we got you. And if you watch the rest, I watched that whole video. It's not that long. It's well produced. They do call the police and they hand the suspect over to police. Now, they do a lot of this in the UK. When I was up there in Newcastle about a year ago with Tommy, I met the original pedophile hunter, I think that's his name. And he does this so many times. He's probably done it 100 times. And he compiles all the evidence. He gives it to police. And if I recall our lunch conversation from Newcastle a while back, he then assists police by being a witness, and he locks these guys up. So you can imagine how often this is happening if hundreds of these folks are doing it. And this fella, you saw the Sikh guy at a turban, was doing it because these Muslim Pakistani grooming gangs, and you saw the stat they had in the intro there, the Quilliam Foundation, which is a Muslim foundation run by Majid Nawaz, 70%, I've heard 80% of these rape gangs in the UK are Pakistani Muslims. Of course, Pakistani Muslims form a tiny percentage of British, maybe 1%. So they're 70 times more likely to be child rapists. It's insane. And the reason I thought that video was interesting is, number one, because it was well done. Good production value, wouldn't you agree with me? Number two, I like the style of that British guy, that British Sikh guy, wouldn't you say? I mean, he doesn't quite have Tommy's style. He's got his own style, but he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing. I think it was very much modeled after the pedophile hunter who I had lunch with a year ago. He handed him over to the cops. That's important. He didn't bash the guy with his own fists. I think that's good. Not to be a vigilante. Hand him over to the cops. But it's funny. I see today that in the Huddersfield rape gang, the one that Tommy was thrown in prison for reporting, I see there were 4 more convictions and sentences today. But I read those sentences, and one of those rapists got just 3 years in prison. And I went online and I looked up the British parole laws, probation, early release, whatever you want to call it in your country. And you automatically get out after half your sentence, automatic. In Canada, we call it statutory release. So one of these serial rapists, gang rapists, again and again and again, countless girls, the judge called him wicked and vile. But then the judge in Leeds gave him a 3-year sentence, which means he'll be out at most in 18 months. So you can't rape girls, and these are girls, these are minor children in the Huddersfield case, as young as 11. Yeah, this is the story. This is on Westmonster, which is a website I like. So these are the men. They entrap, in this case, Indigenous white British girls, rape them again and again and again and again and again, drug them, entrap them, exploit them. 3-year sentence, out in a year and a half? Sorry, that's not appropriate justice. So that's my first video I wanted to show you. I want to show you there's another fella there. Can you tell me the name of that? Can we put, without doing it full screen, can we just put that YouTube page online if people want to see that and watch the full, I don't want to play the full video now, we don't have time for it, but I just want to show people the title of that so that they can go and look that up easily. Like, what's the name of that video? There it is. It's the one on the right there, Groomer Mohammed. Click on it just so we just expand it. This is, yeah, you see it's called Groomer Mohammed targets underage Sikh girl at Bullring New Street Station. So this is the YouTube channel called Sikh Youth UK. I know they're buddies with Tommy. I know he's been to their events before. I think, in fact, Tommy did a video with the lead Sikh activist here. So if you want to watch this whole video, how long is this whole video here? It's 7.5 minutes. So it's not a long, it's well done. I don't know who, there's some drone footage. I don't know if this is their own footage or they bought, but it's called Sikh Youth UK. And the reason I show you this is that these folks are allies of Tommy and they're fighting the same problem as Tommy. Yeah, there he is. There he is. I've seen that guy before. I'm pretty sure the leader of this Sikh youth. Can we call up that old video that I always love showing of Tommy going to the Sikh? You know the one? Do you need me to send the email to you? Okay. Yeah, so we'll show you this guy. I'm pretty sure he's a pal of Tommy. Okay, while we're looking for that video, I see a new super chat. Let me go to it. Flat Dark Earth says, "Hi Ezra, this millennial doesn't vote stupidly. Thanks for everything you and the Rebel team do." Yes, of course, not all rebels, and not all millennials vote stupidly. Of course not. And in fact, they say, I believe there is at least some anecdotal evidence that shows the youngest generation is more conservative than previous generations. I probably believe that. Let's show a clip. I want to show you. It's only about a 90-second video. This has been one of my favorite videos of Tommy of all time, and I'm just going from memory here. I haven't watched this video in months, but if I recall, it's this same Sikh man hanging out with Tommy Robinson that we just saw in that Birmingham Sting video. Let's watch it together, and I'll see if my memory's correct.
So we're in Birmingham, where we've come to this temple where they're having a little demonstration to get together to show that Sikhs stand against what happened in Manchester. So many times the Sikh community are wrongly identified as problematic by uneducated people. So across the country, Sikhs, I've spent the last 6-7 years forming relationships with Sikhs across the country, and we couldn't ask, and no one could ask for a better minority group, a more loyal, a more patriotic, a more hard-working group of people. So the fact that after September 11th, Sikhs were killed, after the Lee Rigby killing, a Sikh was murdered in a horrific attack in response to it. So by morons. So yeah, I think if I've got any sort of platform, I want to show the great side of the Sikh community where they stand on all of these issues. They've been fighting against Islamic extremism throughout their whole history of their religion, of their community.
We're doing a vigil here in solidarity with Manchester. We've got a great banner outside that says the Sikhs stand with those who lost their lives in Manchester.
Although it's left to our platforms to educate people.
Definitely.
I think the BBC should be educating them. I think everyone in this country should know everyone should know the sacrifices the Sikh community made throughout history, yeah, for Britain as well, from the First World War, Second World War, and I think they should know now the contributions that they make into our country. Because I know, I've looked into Sikhism so much. I've spent a lot of time over the years meeting with groups, organisations, and I just want people that follow me to understand exactly what I do.
What do you think? Is that the same guy? I couldn't quite tell, but it made me think maybe that was the same guy. I'd have to compare side by side. Obviously, when he was doing the Sting, he was really adrenalized, and I think his voice, the timbre of his voice, was an octave higher than normal. I think that might have been the same guy without doing a freeze frame and checking. But do you see my point? Do you see why they're a natural ally of Tommy? And I should tell you, and we've shown this video before, do you want to grab the Sikh Awareness Society video of Mohan Singh outside the Leeds Criminal Court? And we can just show that as B-roll. Just YouTube Sikh Awareness Society Leeds. I've shown this before. Remember, shortly after Tommy was arrested, I showed a video of the leader, this guy with the sword, outside the Leeds County Court. Yeah, there it is, exactly. So that's Mohan Singh. He's a good egg. I met him in person. All he does is go from town to town, warning Sikh girls, warning Sikh mom and dads, going to Sikh temples and saying they're coming for Sikh girls too. Now, do you see what's going on here? Just keep it on. You don't need the sound up. Actually, you know what? Throw the sound up. But give me the sound for 60 seconds.
Children as young as 11, in our eyes, they're babies. They abused very, very young children for over a number of years. And, the charges against them range from trafficking, rape, racially aggravated assault, supply of class A drugs, the heroin या cocaine, false imprisonment, child abduction, taking indecent images of children.
Can you skip ahead? Can you skip ahead where he lists the names of the men? So in that same video, just scroll ahead, because Mohan Singh,
Zahid, Mansoor Hassan,
yeah, he's doing
Mohammed
it now.
Kama. And these are all from Huddersfield. Mohammed Rizwan Aslam, Abdul Raham, Mohammed Asaf, and there's another Sikh, Raj Singh, Barsan, Mansoor Akhtar, Nais Ahmed, Mohammed Naim,
Okay, stop it
Hamza
there.
Ali.
So do you see what he was doing there? If it wasn't clear, he was listing the names of the criminal accused, who are now the criminal convicts, in Leeds. And I don't know if you even remember, throw B-roll back up, as long as folks can hear me. Do you see where he's standing? Oh, by the way, there were 2 women charged there too. Do you see where he's standing? Do you see that brick? Do you recognize that? That's where Tommy was standing when he was arrested. I don't know if you recognize that. That's Leeds County Court. So this is Mohan Singh doing the exact same thing that Tommy Robinson was doing on May 25 when he was arrested. Do you understand what I'm saying? He's standing outside the court, warning people what's going on, reading off the names of the accused, listing the charges. In this case, he's showing pictures of them. It's a produced video. Actually, frankly, it's a little bit more production value than Tommy's. You can see he's got some branding there. It says Sikh Awareness Society on it. Okay, we don't need any more video. So do you see my point there? You could say that that fellow there, Mohan Singh, and the younger guy who did the sting, what's the difference between them and Tommy Robinson? They were both at the same court, both about the same rape gang trial. Both did the same thing. They read out the names of the accused, both from the same place, the BBC website or whatever other website they were quoting it from. But funny how they only arrested Tommy. Isn't that funny? I tell you one thing, you arrest Mohan Singh, every Sikh in the UK would stand up, don't you think? I think. All right, I don't want to, we talk about Tommy because it's interesting, but his case is in a bit of a denouement now. It's been kicked over to the Attorney General, so I think at the very earliest it'll be back in front of the courts in 2019. It's not going to happen imminently. I think I told you when I was at his case in London a couple weeks ago, he brought his prison bag with him just in case he was sentenced. So that sort of Damocles has been removed from over him. Now he can think a little more calmly and long term. He knows he's not going to be in prison over Christmas, and he's doing other things. In fact, can you put up on the page, just the GoFundMe page, just go to helpdaisy.uk. So this week, I don't know if you saw, Tommy's back up to what he normally does, and in this case, we helped him a little bit, but he did 99% of the work. We raised, look at this, you see that little girl there, play a little B-roll there, but look at the number, £41,911. Yeah, make that, just click on the full screen there. So it's about this little girl here, Daisy is her name, 7 years old. She's got cerebral palsy. What a cute little girl. One of 8 kids, and that's her mom there. So Tommy led the charge to crowdfund a new high-tech wheelchair for her. £21,000 it costs. I know that it's like about 30,000 Canadian dollars. That's okay, thanks very much. This is an enormous amount of money, but you saw that actually double that has been raised now, and I've been talking to Tommy about setting up, helping him with the legals to set up something called a charitable trust. That's a fancy way of saying a charity in the UK. So the idea is, I don't know if you remember, a year ago we got a wheelchair when Tommy was with the Rebel. We got a wheelchair for a veteran named Gareth Knox. This is one that Tommy did on his own. We just helped a tiny bit for this little girl named Daisy. We've got £20,000, it's about 30,000 Canadian dollars surplus. So we're going to roll it into a charitable trust. And I'll let Tommy make all the announcements about that because it's his thing. But I'm excited about that. And anyhow, so my point is, because Tommy's not facing imminent imprisonment or prosecution, or shall I say persecution. He could do some normal stuff now, like raising money for a wheelchair for kids. All right, it's 12:25. I said we were going to cover 4 continents. Sorry, not 4 continents, 4 countries. We've covered the UK. I spent more time there than I thought, but I just wanted to tell you more about that Sikh video. You got to admit, that's an interesting video. That Sikh video. Would you not agree with me? A Sikh guy stinging a Pakistani Muslim who is grooming what he thought was a young Sikh girl. And I encourage you to watch the rest of the video as that Sikh activist hands him over to the cops. Very interesting. We should interview that Sikh fella. All right, moving from the United Kingdom to the United States, I want to show you the difference between the media party and reality. I live in Canada, the National Post. I used to work for that newspaper. They ran this cartoon the other day about Donald Trump and the Pittsburgh murder. Put the cartoon up. There you go. There's Donald Trump saying now is the time to come together, which is what he said. And here's Gary Clement of the National Post saying, go away. Love Trump's hate. Your words matter. And Trump saying, oh, okay, not exactly what I had in mind. So if you believe the National Post, it's gone totally never Trumper. It's an embarrassment, frankly. And they're obsessed with it almost as much as the CBC is. They would have you believe that Donald Trump has been rejected by Pittsburgh and by the Jewish community because a small group of extremists said so. In fact, the rabbi, can you call it up? The rabbi gave an interview with CNN where he said how he spent 20 minutes with the family and how warm the family is. Look for that video, but in the meantime, play the video we have on deck. This is Trump in the hospital, and this is a cell phone video taken by hospital staff. While you're looking for the rabbi, I think his name is Myers, he's talking to, I think, Alison Camerado at CNN after his meeting with Trump, not the before one. In the meantime, here's the hospital cell phone video. Take a look.
Thank you, President Trump.
Thank you. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you all very much. No, thank you, sir.
The best.
Great job.
Thank you, Mr. President. We love you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Can I shake your hand, sir?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, President Trump.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, darling. That's a great gesture.
Thank you, First Lady. Thank you,
I don't care what it says.
We love you. Thank you. I don't want to know.
I don't want to know. This guy just got up. Look, thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just got
Thank
out of
you
the
all.
operating room, right?
A couple hours ago.
See, when Trump shakes your hand, there's no problem. Anyway, thank you all very much.
Thank you for coming. Thank you to Pittsburgh.
Thank you, darling. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love you, Ivanka. Nobody ever heard of you.
Yeah, that's real life. That's why you didn't see that in the National Post or on the CBC or on CNN or whoever the liars are in the UK, Sky News, ITV, because they want their myth that Trump is not welcome, that Trump is hated, that Trump was to blame and therefore was blamed. Do we have that rabbi clip? Okay, here's what the rabbi of the actual synagogue said. It's a couple minutes long, but I want to roll it because I think it's. I like this rabbi. I think he has not lost his mind while all those around him have. Take a look.
Since President Trump and his family came to visit your synagogue, what can you share about the words that you exchanged with the president and what happened during that time?
I was introduced by Ambassador Ron Dermer from Israel to the President and the First Lady and to Jared and Ivanka. After we shook hands, I escorted the family into Tree of Life. I was privileged to have a private 15 or 20 minutes with the family. The President was very warm, very consoling. Put his hand on my shoulder, and the first question he asked me was, "Rabbi, tell me, how are you doing?" And I must say, throughout the time we spent together, I was pleasantly surprised by a warm and personal side to the president that I don't think America has ever seen. I told my personal story of my experience, which they found quite shocking and upsetting. We talked. I shared the same message that I've shared with you throughout the course of the week, that hate speech has no place in our society, that hate speech leads to actions of hate. Hate speech led to the death of 7 of my congregants and 11 total in my building. And we shared more other personal conversation that I'd respectfully like to keep personal.
That's real life, folks. That's real as opposed to fake. I am actually surprised they had the rabbi back on CNN, because he was the one who in the first instance said, "President's always welcome at the synagogue. I'm a citizen. He's my president." That's shockingly normal and patriotic comments. The fact that CNN had him back on is the real surprise there. So there's story number 2. Story number 1 was that interesting sting by the Sikh activist. The second was our British coverage. Then there was our Pittsburgh coverage. The next 2 are by the same fella on our team, David Menzies. And I just want to show you a little clip. David has his own little caravan in Mexico. Take a quick look.
Well, we're about 3 hours out of Oaxaca City, and as you can see, folks, this is an incredibly mountainous region. It's a 2-lane highway that carves through these mountains, and this is evidently in the days ahead where the 5,000 plus migrant caravan will be headed. Needless to say, it's going to be a logistical challenge. I mean, I don't know how you're going to get that many people onto such a narrow mountainous road to begin with, unless you shut down the highway, of course. And physically, at least for those who are older, perhaps those who are pregnant women, this will be quite the odyssey should they make it this far. We'll see in the days ahead.
Well, that is our friend David. I should tell you that since he produced that video, he has in fact met up with the caravan and has produced a number of videos that we will be releasing. And of course, he will continue to be there for at least, I was just checking on his flights a moment ago, at least 3 more days. So now he is engaged with the caravan, and we're being very careful because can you get that? Did you see that video of the caravan, the second caravan, I think, interacting with that helicopter? Did you see that? So David was not where they were, where the guy had a Molotov cocktail and when they were fighting with police. That is not where David is. David is met up with the first caravan. As you may know, there is a second caravan coming. I want to show you a clip that I saw. I'm not sure if this is the first or the second, but I can tell you David was not at this. I think this was the second one. David was not at this one. But there's a helicopter now. I think this is a Mexican helicopter. I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure. There's not a lot of details attendant on this video. But you tell me, let me know when we got the clip. You tell me if, well, by the way, I see that these migrants have filed a lawsuit in the United States against Donald Trump. I don't even know what for. They're not American citizens. They have no standing as citizens. They don't have the constitutional rights of a citizen. But I guess they're rich enough and savvy enough and sophisticated enough to file a lawsuit. I'm surprised it wasn't with, what's his name, Avenatti, the porn lawyer that has been all over American news. But yeah, I don't think there's much doubt that this whole caravan shenanigans is orchestrated by the Democrats and the left. Give me a holler when you got that video. We can come back to it later, I suppose. It was just quite something to see them. I mean, I don't think they posed a real threat to the helicopter, but they were clearly violent. And most of these migrants are, as they say, single military-aged men. What's interesting is that one of these governments, I can't remember if it's Guatemala or Honduras, had 100 ISIS terrorists arrested. I'll dig that up while we show you the clip of the helicopter. Here, take a look. I think that was a Molotov cocktail that one guy was carrying. But those guys don't really look like they look more like Antifa than refugees. Fellas, I just sent you a story, if you could put it up, about the ISIS. Now, listen, take this with a grain of salt. I don't even know what this means, but throw it up on the screen when you guys have it there. There we go. Just scroll. If you scroll, that'll move that. Scroll up so we can see the headline. Guatemalan president boasts about catching 100 ISIS operatives as his country lays in turmoil amid thousands fleeing towards the U.S. border. Guatemalan President Jimmy Morales boasted on Thursday that the country had captured almost 100 ISIS, with most of them being deported. Secretary of Social Communication for the presidency, Alfred Brito, added that the data on the captures was protected information of national security. I don't know what this means, but it's pretty obvious why the Democrats love these folks, because whether they're Muslim extremists or just plain old regular illegal migrants, or maybe there's something in between like Antifa thugs, which that last clip sort of showed, these are natural Democrats. Would you agree with me on that? All right, so we showed you story number 1, which was the Sikh sting. We showed you story number 2, Donald Trump in Pittsburgh. Story number 3, David Menzies in Oaxaca. It looks nice down there. It looks really nice. It looks dry and warm as opposed to our wet Canadian winter. The 4th video, it's also a David Menzies special. He did it here in Toronto. I don't know if you know this, but Justin Trudeau, our man-child prime minister, has been stashing refugees in hotels. Now that doesn't really work, because hotels aren't really built for families to stay for months on end. They're not, they're not built as daycares or as schools or things. And David tried to book a night at this refugee hotel, and he did, but when they saw him, they identified him, and they kicked him out. He went in and he had the goggles, the glasses with a camera, and he met some young kids who had just left to run around the hotel all day. Their parents aren't even there. Let's show the video.
They're shouting? Oh.
What's your name?
My name is Dave. What's your name?
My name is Ayo.
Oh, where are you from?
Nigeria.
Nigeria.
This is my sister. My sister.
Oh, hi.
Junior.
Oh, I don't have any change on me. Sorry. Where are your parents?
They gone out.
They gone out? Oh.
I card.
You don't have the card to get into the room? Oh, okay.
It goes on. You can see that whole thing at our website. Basically, they're just dumping the kids all day, and they run around. Those kids there seem like really nice kids, but there's also other shenanigans going on, and it is a hotel that still allows some, I guess it hasn't used up all its rooms, so some regular guests come. They're shocked when they realize, I mean, those are actually nice kids, and they didn't seem to be in duress or jeopardy there, but there were other reports on TripAdvisor about insane things going on. And of course, when you import people from Syria or other rape cultures like that, and you put them into a culture of gender equality like Canada, you obviously have the discomfort of uncovered Western, e.g. Canadian women, and men who expect women to be covered. You can see all those stories elsewhere on our websites. By the way, if you want more from David down in Mexico, we've set up a little website called caravanreports.com, where we'll have all those videos. I see a couple more super chats there. Uncle Rusty 2, please comment on the UN Migration Pact. Surprised mainstream media and even Rebel hasn't covered. Apologies if I missed it. I am interested in that. I'm slowly briefing myself on that. There is a conference in Marrakesh in December on that. And frankly, I hope we can cover it. So we'll have more on that. Keith McIntosh from Mexico chips in 200 Mexican pesos. Thank you, Keith. Why will media not challenge Liberals on contradiction in recent policies? Massive immigration from third world countries runs contrary to policy to reduce CO2. Canada 15.12 versus Somalia 0.09 per capita metric tons a year. Look, no one actually is worried about carbon dioxide. I know that because, and this is the analogy I always make, whenever I bump into a PETA activist, you know what I'm talking about, people for the ethical treatment of animals? Whenever I bump into a vegan activist or something like that, they're living the dream. They're living the creed, as in they're not chomping on a Big Mac while they're telling me to go vegetarian. You take my point? They're not wearing leather, they're not wearing like a leather jacket while they're telling me not to eat meat. They're trying to be consistent. Compare that to environmental activists. I have never in my life, and I've been on this beat for at least a decade, I've never in my life seen an environmental activist who does not use oil and energy and jet fuel and all the accoutrements of modern industrial technology. Never seen it. In fact, they're the ones flying around the most. I don't know if you watched Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth. Half of it is him flying first class in jets to very, very important places. Look at Catherine McKenna, Canada's environment minister, jetting around. I mean, we do a lot of meetings here at The Rebel via Skype. I think it's great. I love a Skype meeting. More than flying. Well, you fly if you want to go on a junket. You fly if you want to be a big shot. Why doesn't our environment minister have a Skype meeting? So my point is, no one actually believes that carbon dioxide is going to end the world, or at least they don't live like they believe it. So why should the rest of us? All right, it is 12:43. I have covered all the videos that I brought with me today and a few more that I didn't, and I thank Alex and Justin for procuring those on short order. So now I'm going to dive in. What time is this? 12:43. Showing you a lot of videos. Read a few super chats. Feel free to chip in if you want. That'll ensure that I see your comment. It'll stand out in color, and I will read it, I promise. But in the meantime, let me just try and find some other chats. Have I got all the super chats that have come up? Yeah, I think so. Okay. Synthwork says 15,000 troops on the Mexican border. I don't know the number of troops that Trump is sending. I saw a video on Twitter the other day of a train full of heavy equipment, heavy military equipment going down the border. And I've seen a lot of people retweet that, but honestly, I don't know if that's a legit video or if that's just some historical footage. Like really, I could go on Google right now and type in U.S. military vehicles on a train. I could get a video and I could, like if it doesn't identify in some verifiable way the date and location of it, I don't know if that's a legit video. But if Donald Trump did say he's sending 5,000 or more troops to the border, well, I don't know what the number is now. They probably would go there by train, right? You're not going to drive a tank on the road. So maybe that was a legit video. It'll be interesting to me because, of course, what will the U.S. military do You don't need a tank to shoot a gun. How are you going to stop people? Are you going to use a fire hose or something? I don't know. Are you going to stay within the Canadian-American border, or are you going to go, I don't know, 10 yards into Mexico? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. What exactly, frankly, it reminds me of the challenges, both logistically, practically, technologically, and politically, optically, Israel. When you have Palestinian civilians, now in the case of that, they're throwing Molotov cocktails, they're throwing stones, they're doing violence. How does one of the world's most elite militaries respond to civilians doing criminal or terroristic things? How do you do that? How does the U.S. military respond to a caravan of migrants who are not coming with tanks and cannons? So what are you going to do? I mean, you can have, why would you send an M1 Abrams tank to the border? Where you're going to shoot some Soviet T something or other tank? No, you're not being invaded by tanks, you're being invaded by people, some of whom are legitimately desperate economically, some of whom are bad dudes, bad hombres, as Trump would say, MS-13 gang members. How do you stop them? Well, Trump's got a few days to figure that out. Our David Menzies will be there to report. All right, I don't see any more super chats. Let me just read some more general chats. Patty Cronin says only 20% of refugees to Germany have a job 2 years after arriving. How are they helping the economy? Well, that's a better number than in Canada. I've seen reportage, including in the Globe and Mail, that only 10% of Trudeau's Syrians have employment after 3 years, and most don't even have fluent English or French. End of the line, Joel. Ezra, do you follow CFL football? I'm sorry, I don't. I can barely spell CFL, people, and we can't be all things, and I'm just not as sporty as you look at me. You think, there's a guy who's doing some deep sports training, cross training every day. He's fit, he's CrossFit, he's like a toiger. There's a guy with very, very little body mass index fat, like he's lean. He must be doing sports. No, I'm just lucky that I got this genetic, that I look like this. It's just luck. I know you might find this hard to believe. I'm not that sporty, and I don't watch the sports. I hope I haven't disillusioned you. I'm sorry if I have. A little bit too personal there. Black Synth, again, they won't show Tommy raising all this money for good causes on BBC News. Yeah, good point. I mean, Tommy, and we have helped raise Tommy's legal fees. Tommy raises fees for other things as well. But tell me a lefty who actually does anything charitable. I haven't seen it. They don't believe in it. They believe in taxing others. Shudahanch Apadeye says, hell yeah, we agree with you, Ezra. These are natural Democrats. You're referring to the caravan of migrants. Well, obviously. You know, it's funny. I can't recall it quickly, but there was a time and an occasion where a group of migrants would have been right-wing. And you're thinking, what, how, who, what? Well, in some of the wars in Indochina, let's say southern Vietnamese, people who were fleeing the communists as those countries fell, you bring them to America, they're going to vote Republican, right? I think it was Jerry Brown of California back then who said, no, no, no. I don't have that at my fingertips. I'd have to dig it up. But yeah, the only reason, my point is the only reason these migrants are welcome is because they would be left-wing. There are other possible refugees in the world. For example, the Boers, the white Dutch farmers in South Africa, you could call them refugees. They are being persecuted. Can we get the shoot the Boer clip that we've used before, you know, they're being targeted for racial violence. Those would be, they would meet the UN legal definition of a refugee, someone who is in imminent danger of harm because of their race or religion or something like that. These Boer farmers. would be in jeopardy. Here, and if you doubt me, just look at this. This is the head of a political party in South Africa. I think it's called the EFF. And you got to watch this. The chant is terrifying. But even more terrifying is that the audience knows it so well they can do a call and response. Take a look.
Shoot to kill the massa. Shoot to kill, kill 'em. Kiss the poor, the farmer. Kiss the poor, the farmer. Brr, pa, pa. Brr, pa, pa. Attention.
There's at least 1,000 people there. Would you agree? That's a lot of people, and they all knew the words and they all knew the action. Shoot the boer, pow, pow, shoot to kill. And they do. That guy's name is Julius Malema. He is the leader of a party called the Economic Freedom Fighters. They are to the left of, for the radical, than the ANC. But they're getting their way. They're bringing in expropriation without compensation legislation in South Africa. And the refugees from these people, the white Boer farmers, they would not be welcome in America. Of course, they would not be welcome in Canada because they would most probably vote right-wing. Breathing sunshine, how come you pretty much ignored the Toronto mayoral election corruption? Well, I know that I talked about it from time to time on my Battleground podcasts on Fridays. And I remember that Sheila Gunn Reid and David Menzies did also on one occasion. I didn't do any specific videos about it because I didn't want to pile on to Faith any more than I did in my brief comments. I recall my early prediction that Faith would get less than 5% of the vote, and she did. That I did not think that she was a serious candidate. She turned into a more serious candidate than I thought. She actually ran, I thought, a good campaign. Her issues were strong, her tactics were strong, high energy, etc. But because she didn't solve her essential systemic problem, she didn't correct a year of dalliance with racist factions, her own statements and conduct, no one would endorse her. In fact, when Premier Doug Ford had a picture snapped with Faith, he felt compelled to repudiate her by name, which he did. And if Faith, a year ago, had pulled out the stinger and said, look, I went on the Daily Stormer, I didn't really know what they were, I was too caught up in things, I didn't understand what they were, and I want to make it clear I'm not for white supremacy, I'm not for neo-Nazis, I'm against government open borders, I'm against state multiculturalism, I'm against all these things, but I'm not for neo-Nazis, which is what the Daily, I mean, think of the Daily Stormer, that's an homage to Hitler's Der Stürmer. If Faith would have taken the stinger out of herself and shown a moment of reflection and introspection and contrition even, a year ago, I think that Ford Nation would have felt comfortable with her. And by Ford Nation, I mean Doug Ford himself and everyone that Doug Ford leads, and his MPPs and federal MPs. And I think Faith could have had a lot of support, and including from us. But she has never publicly repudiated or even expressed regret for her year-long racist bender. I know that Conrad Black wrote a column saying she expressed regret, but she might have done so in secret or private. That doesn't solve the public problem. Was it wrong that CP24 and Rogers and other companies illegally refused to sell ads to her? Of course it was wrong. I'm not sure if Faith did herself any favors by having her lawyer sue in a court with questionable jurisdiction. I think she perhaps should have gone to the federal court, but I'm not going to try and second guess her legal strategy. But look, that's over. That's over. It bothered me having to address, I mean, look, she was a fringe candidate, 3-point-something%. Had she removed the stigma from herself even 6 months ago, I think she easily would have gotten 10%. And had she normalized herself and repudiated her racist bender enough to get Ford Nation to say, that's our gal, I think she would have had a chance. You think Doug Ford likes John Tory? You think Doug Ford likes that crazy Jennifer Keesmaat? Had there been a passable, energetic, principled conservative running, Doug Ford would have endorsed her. And a lot of true conservative activists who were sitting on their hands in the election would have got involved. I think she actually could have had a chance. But her own pride and vanity and refusal to bend the knee, not to a person, but to acknowledge that she had missteps, she, in my view, would not risk disappointing her white supremacist Twitter army. That's why she wouldn't express any regret in public, because she didn't want to turn off the Richard Spencers of the world who championed her. So she made her choice. And everyone from Christian leaders, where were the Christian leaders? I've spoken with faith at the big church at the Canada Christian College a number of times. That whole community was silent because faith did not do an act of political hygiene on herself, and so why would anyone else? All right, enough talk about that. That question came up pretty much every week for the last 2 months. I don't propose to answer it anymore because it's moot. It's moot. Breathing Sunshine, $5. Reasonable answer, Ezra. I just feel everyone should have the law applied equally, even those we might disagree with and even despise. I agree with you completely. I agree with you completely. El Chupacabra, Toronto is commie central, so no surprise that faith lost. All right, but why did Rob Ford win? If it's commie central, why did Rob Ford win? Huh? And by the way, John Tory, you could say he was center-ish. My point is, I think a true conservative could win. Look, Doug Ford won important districts in Toronto provincially. Don't make that excuse. Yeah, there's a lot of far-left parts of Toronto. But if Rob Ford himself can win in this city, another true conservative could. But you're not going to get people lining up behind someone who went on the Daily Stormer and has refused to show any reflection on that. Sorry. Jake Wright, Patriots and football ads are going to confront thousands of lefties in London this Monday at the Million Mask March in London. Well, I don't know about that, but I hope it's not violent. Brian Kirk, apologizing is just admitting guilt. Well, only if you think you did something wrong. If you don't think you did something wrong, then don't apologize. If you think you did something wrong, I'm not saying apologize, just correct and explain. We haven't had a correction or explanation, so we must assume that she stands by it. Sanctuary City, John Tory, centrist. All right, I take your point. But he's not the most left-wing thing that was on the ballot. And I say again, had there been a credible mainstream conservative, he or she could have won. If Rob Ford could win, you could have had a conservative win. But people aren't going to get behind someone who was on the Daily Stormer and unrepentant about it. Sorry. Let me find some others here. We got about 2 minutes left. Real Men Fish. You must admit, Ezra, the media party vilified faith 24/7 throughout the campaign. Yes, they did. And she made it easy for them. You know, I have a funny rule of thumb. It's sort of a joke. It's I like to apologize once a year, whether I need to or not. Now, the joke is, of course, we apologize when we do something wrong, and for most of us, we do something wrong more than once a year. The joke is, whether I need to or not, it's the joke. We hate apologizing. I do. But you know, almost every time I apologize, if I actually believe I did something wrong, it's immediately liberating because you pass that stone, it's done. And when you apologize or show any contrition or reflection or correction, you take the energy out of your enemies. I mean, if you take yourself down a notch, then other people don't feel compelled to. And if they insist, well, then they look punitive and mean-spirited. And yes, I agree that the mainstream media vilified her, but I think that had she shown any sort of self-awareness over the last year, she could have done to herself, in a positive way, the correction that they were trying to inflict upon her maliciously. That's what happens when you apologize. You actually take the air out of your enemy's sails, the wind out of their sails. Let me just see. We got another. Oh, I think we're pretty much out of time. It's 1 o'clock. There's just one more tweet I'll read. Kazimir Urbanski, RPG pundit, says Venezuelan fleeing socialism. That's another source of migration that would not be welcome in Canada or the United, by the left in America, because they would be fleeing socialism. All right, it's 1 o'clock Eastern, 5 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. I think we covered a lot of ground. I appreciate your support for the Rebel 24/7, 365, and the last hour, including those who chipped in with the Super Chat. Keep watching what we're up to. Keep going to caravanreports.com. I didn't mention that we're starting a bit of a project on this StatsCan bank snooping. Just in the final moments here, go to stopsnooping.ca if you want to learn more about that. I'll actually have some news later today. But I'll let you go now because the hour's up. Until next time, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters, to you at home, goodbye, and keep fighting for freedom.